here. All right, so about half, a little over half of you. Have any of you had some interesting experiences you'd like to share with everybody else here? Go for it.
Really windy days on a paved road where you couldn't mistake it.
So what'd you do? How'd you keep it down?
We had, it was a combination of sandbags and people standing there holding them.
All right, so when there are when you're having an event in the middle of the Commons, which is also known as the wind tunnel, this happens very frequently. Part of your job as an event planner is to secure all of the equipment.
Oh, it's broken.
Which one? Where?
Right here.
Oh, no.
Seriously, it is
That's
broken.
all right. We're going to keep going with putting it up like,
Okay.
so this could be something you could encounter.
Okay.
15 minutes.
We'll keep going.
Okay.
Here. It looks like a top. We'll just pretend it's not broken because we won't put it up all the way anyhow. Oh. All right. So, yep, with two people, we're going to keep going. We got this. So, weighting a tent down. Major portion of equipment. Weighting all of your items down so they don't fly away. If you're taking a look at this tent right now, what is this tent? Pretend this top is solid. It's a sail for any type of large boat on the water, really. So essentially a tent flies when it gets windy. So if you're on a paved surface, which many of you will be if you utilize public spaces, parking lots, anything for your event that's like that, you need to always have your backup plan. So a major thing with events, what are some ways you've weighted down tents for Streets Alive and it's really windy?
Last night we used sandbags. They were all like cooperative extension, but it like broke our backs.
Right, so it has to be efficient. It also has to be able to get into your transport vehicle and back out in the time frame you need it without making this a risk to your crowd. So buckets of water, if you have water access, or you're at Stewart Park on the lake, and then you can dump them out and stack those buckets and put them in your truck. So, and having supplies on hand. Buckets, you're going to need ropes, potentially stakes, if you have the opportunity. Now that's particularly for a tent, but you want to think through these steps for all the equipment you're using. What are the safety needs? And so if we're going to take a look at equipment and maintenance, ta-da, the Tompkins Festivals site. So when you're putting together your event, you've gone through your event plan, you are a month out, and you're going through your list of rentals, right? And you need to know what you're going to order. So you put in your order to your rental companies, then you get this whole slew of stuff in lots of different ways.
Should we continue?
It's a little challenging with that, because you can't pull it out from the side without...
Well, I think you can.
Do you want to interrupt here?
Oh, keep going, come on. I want you to get after it. Oh, you're getting close.
Stand up.
All right. Just thank you. Let's give them a round. So, thank you. No, that's all right. That's okay. We'll keep going. Now, this is an exercise in, it takes two people. How long from the beginning of my presentation till now was that? Anybody know?
About 5 minutes.
It's 4.5 minutes. So 4.5 minutes. Now, we had some minor complications there. But when you are scheduling 1 hour of setup with all your volunteers who maybe have never put a pop-up together, and they're probably going to break up into groups of 2 because volunteers work together in 2, or instead they're lost. So you should always put them in 2. You have to anticipate a much longer time when you're not working with professionals working with equipment. You have a higher breakage rate on the equipment that you borrow. So it's very important to have a supervisor who can teach them how to do this and also supervise while they're doing it. That means loading into a truck, unloading out of a truck, setting all that equipment up, securing that equipment, making sure that if it is something that needs to be locked up, something that they're going to leave and walk away from, that it's not something that's going to get stolen. Because they don't know, they're a volunteer. And most of you are going to work in events where you're going to have a large group of volunteers as the base, and they don't understand how this functions together, and who's a good guy and a bad guy. They don't know that. So really taking a look when you're working with equipment, either hiring professionals or training your staff very well to utilize this equipment, and having somebody who might have a better idea working with equipment to help you learn so that you can teach others. So with this tent, You could do it by yourself. It's always easier with 2 people. It's a little hard to get it up all the way, but some of the things that you'll understand about using equipment is sometimes more people are better, sometimes more people are more difficult. Your best helpful friend is Google. Your tech crew chief should always have a smartphone to be able to look up the guide for the serial number on the thing. The user manual is always available online for anything you have bought in the past 5 years. That is a super helpful tool because you're going to get equipment that's different than what you ordered. All right, so we're going to go back up here to the Tompkins Festival site. If you go up here to resources, there is a list of equipment. Thanks, Gary. And this is where you can get all kinds of equipment for your event for free if it's held within Tompkins County, as long as you ask for it and request ahead of time. So go to, yep, equipment. Now scroll down a little bit for me.
Use 2 fingers.
2 fingers and then just drag it. Yep, perfect.
No.
Well, close. It's a Mac, it's very troubling. Anyhow, there is first a list of equipment. You may not know what all that equipment is. You may not know how to necessarily use it. It doesn't mean it's not useful for your event. And a lot of these things are general pieces of equipment. So take a look. There's tables, chairs. Does anybody have any idea what a Hubble power distribution and accessory is? Any clue?
They're like transformers.
Kind of. It's a distribution box that hooks to a giant towable generator with long feeder cable that supplies electric to food vendors. It's this giant little panel. That's how all the ice carvers are run for those festivals. This is a piece of equipment that is very expensive to own, but makes your event so much easier to access resources and really allows it to stretch. Now, if you don't have an electrician hooking that to the generator, it's extremely risky and dangerous. So it's not something we would rent to you without full knowledge that you had somebody coming in who knew how to use that, but it is available to you at no charge, where renting something like this and all the cables to go with it could cost you $500 to $800 per event. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of music for your event, or it's a lot of piñatas. So you want to think we'll think in terms of piñatas. So you take a look at your sheet. Here, can you scroll up to the top for me? So say you put together your supply list from all of your rentals, everything you're going to get from places like this, music equipment. You want one list that includes all those things because that's how you know what you have to bring back and what you have left somewhere. There are so many first-year events that get dinged and end up very far in the hole because they left equipment at their site because it was a one-day event and thought their volunteers had cleaned it up. And that is really costly, and it makes sure that you don't have a second-year event because your board thinks you're irresponsible. And you really need to prove to them when you're having a first-year event that it's going well. Julie, if the porta potties are left in Stewart Park with Julie, she will not hear about it once. She will hear about it 5 times from every person involved in Stewart Park. She's going to hear about it from the police chief who went there to survey something. So at that point, it has stuck in Julie's head that now Micah leaves porta potties places. So when your next permit round comes up, she's going to ask you about those porta potties. But if nobody told you they were left there and you didn't know because of your supply list, you didn't have it marked off, you're not going to be ready for that. And then you're going to have that's going to be drawing out your first permit meeting into 3 permit meetings. And you are trying to work efficiently, generally, on a very low budget for a first-time event. You don't want that. So here, if you scroll up, click here to print the request and equipment form that's dark. Right inside that first, no, lower. There you go. Click right on it. Oh, it's blocked. Okay, well, that's the form that you fill out and then you send into the DIA
Hit the arrow.
at the Tompkins Festivals website. That requests the equipment. They'll send you back a form that says, we have this, we don't have this. These are the people who probably could provide that for you. And then talks to you a little bit more about what's the use for these items. You might be able to do it in an inexpensive way with this, this, and this. So if you want to scroll down. But anyhow, this is your basic form. It lists all of the things that you might need at the end. And then you call them and say, do you have this? Do you have this? Ask for any, make a wish list. Because they have a lot of contacts of how to hook you up with equipment all over the place. When you request equipment, you also have to think about how you're transporting equipment. This is a huge component and it's very costly to your event. If the thing you're trying to pick up from the DIA is supposed to produce an event component that is music for your event, and the truck rental to move the thing from the DIA costs more than the event is projected to bring in income, because you have to buy insurance to be able to drive the truck, rent the truck. Even if you're not driving it, you have to rent it for, say, the day before, the day of the event, the day after. If it costs more to rent the truck than your event's going to make, then you don't want that from the DIA. But you don't know that the bounce house weighs 400 pounds and requires 4 people to move it and needs a constant energy flow, so can't run off a generator. When you ask for those items, they're going to talk to you a little bit about what your purpose is. So you want to think through that from beginning to end. If you have a vehicle big enough to move a bounce house, and if you have the funds to pay for the thing that moves the bounce house, if you don't. All right? So that's just what we're going over. So that's really, for things you need to know right off the bat to get equipment, it's right there. Utilizing a lot of that equipment will happen when you come to show up to pick it up. And that's, so it's fresh in your memory right before the event. And also if you have questions about how many people or how to project labor for moving, like setting up a stage, is very labor intensive. It takes a lot of people. Every section of the stage weighs 200 pounds. And depending on the size stage you use, it's going to change your labor costs. And that's going to affect your overall bottom line. So asking a lot of questions when you're going through an equipment request. Same thing of your regular rental companies and how those things work. Everything as simple as the hitch on the generator to move it to your location. You could end up with a lot of delivery fees if you don't have a vehicle that can do that. So you really need to ask a lot of questions, and you might feel like you're being a pest. You only have to be a pest once to know the answer. It's fine, be a pest. At least you know and you can figure it out. Julie, how are you back there?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Come on up, Julie.
I mean, I'm exhausted just listening to everything you've covered so far. I applaud all of you event organizers for being here. It's a lot of work, I know. And
This is my fun game.
so the only comment I would add to the tent is about stakes. So if you end up staking it, you have to UFPO, which is 1-800-DIG-SAFELY New York, because there could be underground utilities. And something as simple as a little metal stake that is this big could actually hit an underground electrical wire or something like that and create a big problem and a huge safety hazard. So,
yes.
So that's why I think she led with the sandbags or the water buckets or whatever, because it's also a lot easier if you're not on concrete. If you're in a park or whatever, you may still want to consider those things, weighting it as opposed to staking it, especially if you're in a time crunch and you forgot to do that, because there are time limits as to how early you can call to have that done.
There are. So I'm going to talk a little bit after Julie's done, if there's time, about some of those pieces, but this is lovely piece of paper I handed out, and I didn't necessarily go over this section,
Okay.
but I know you have your own set of planned ideas. This I just give as a handout.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, I kind of came, and I'll apologize, I came a little unprepared because I wanted to be here more for the questions that you might have. So my name's Julie Conley Holcomb, and I'm the city clerk for the city of Ithaca. But I facilitate the city special events team. So anybody having an event in the city of Ithaca that requires 3 or more permits qualifies as a special event. And the special event process is a bit more rigorous, as Patty may have mentioned, than just a simple event permit or a request to use a park or something like that. So the city special event team is made up of representatives from the Ithaca Fire Department, the Ithaca Police Department, the Department of Public Works, some of our parks and forestry people, our parking people, planning and economic development. I mean, it's a very comprehensive team that is specifically designed to help you have a successful event. And the goals around that was to make sure that our communication is as strong as it can possibly be. We want to hear every aspect of your event because we need to make sure that we can assist you in keeping everybody safe. But you also there have one-stop shopping access to all the city officials that you're going to need to get questions answered and all of that. So it's a process that has worked really well. We've just developed an online permitting system that we're piloting for this season to see how well that will go, especially for the events that are recurring every year, very little change. You know, we don't want to drag you into meetings and you don't want to come to these meetings if you don't have to. So we're trying to see, you know, we want to see all new event organizers because we want to be able to introduce ourselves to you. We want to get to know you a little bit and a little bit more about your event. You know, if the Apple Harvest Festival has generally remained the same aside from construction, you know, for a couple of years. You know, we don't want to bother Patty as long as, and she's a proven event organizer, that's the other thing. You know, we like to get a couple of years of working with event organizers until we know, hey, they've got it. We don't have to worry about this. And I know if those porta potties are there, I know who to call, and I can say, hey, what's the deal? You know, there's day camps and it's in the way and, you know, all of that. But I also know that there's not going to be porta potties there because, you know, you guys know what you're doing. So that's our intent in working with you, is to help you become really strong event organizers and to understand where the city's coming from, because you're requesting to use public property that belongs to everybody. So we're the stewards of that property. So we have a number of responsibilities. Number one, public safety will always be our primary concern. So you guys may come in with some really creative ideas and, you know, hey, what are some of the, well...
I want to put a slide down Buffalo Street.
Yes, or the skate
one.
jam, the Ithaca skate jam.
Really?
We want to put skateboarders down Buffalo Street, and at first we're like, what? You know, that's crazy, you know. But then you come in and you say, no, these are trained professionals. They know what they're doing. They're, you know, it's not just the random person's not going to be able to say, hey, I want to try this, and, you know, go off these loop-de-loop jumps and things like that. So we're going to ask you about those events. And we've had some kind of crazy asks, and we've got a couple of times we've had to say, nah, you know, one which would have been really popular and is a cool idea, helicopter rides in Stewart Park. That was a request for one of the Ithaca Festivals, which is a great idea on its face, but when you start to delve a little bit deeper, Stewart Park is one of the places where we have the lowest hanging electrical wires. And it's also that part of the festival draws 5,000 people maybe throughout the day to that park. So as you have aircraft coming in, there's trees, there's electrical wire, so it becomes very technical to begin with, and you're flying over water and you're flying over people. You know, there's times where you have to say, we're not sure we want to accept that risk. I mean, you'd be accepting the risk along with us because we require insurance for all of your events, but there's going to be times that you're going to be told, I don't think so. Or you may be told yes with some modifications, or you may be told, hey, that's really cool. You know, I can't wait to come. I can't wait to see how that all works out.
So with this, how early should somebody approach you with their original idea? Because if your original idea is going to get shot down, you don't want to raise all the funding for it. We don't want to go through a huge process of investing a lot of time and resources. So when should they come with you if their event is going to have it's going to trigger at least 3 permits within the city?
We want to see, if it's a rather benign, it's a musical festival kind of thing. So you're having a bunch of bands, you're going to have some vendors, you're going to, you know, that's not a big deal to us. We would want to see you probably a minimum of, if you're new, 3 months before your event, so that we have an opportunity, because our team only meets once a month. So we want an opportunity to cycle you through at least twice if there's problems. And this means you're brand new, you've never really done this, you haven't worked with us before.
What if there's camping at that music festival and it has a parade?
We will want to see you at minimum 6 months before your event. And actually, I'd love to talk to you the year before your event, because there's a lot of steps that add up to that, just to put it on our radar. And sometimes, you know, it's a matter of convincing city staff that everything's going to be okay and that you've got it under control, you know, and that takes some massaging sometimes, and it takes us sometimes to say, well, how are we really going to pull this off, and what if this happens, and what if that happens, and so we want to work with you on your contingency plans, and we'll say, okay, but, you know, for Stewart Park, it's a great venue. I love events. I have it at Stewart Park. But there's a couple major problems with that venue. There's only about 280 parking spots, so if you're having an event and you're hoping to draw 700-800 people, you have a problem. And we want to know how you're going to handle that. Because you can't park on the grass, because we'll be all over you if we see that. You know, and there's summer storms that come up the lake very quickly. We want to know how you're going to be monitoring those weather conditions. And should you have 800 people in Stewart Park, and we get a tornado warning or something like that, how are you getting them out of Stewart Park? Especially since they don't have their cars. What are you going to do? Because there's one main structure that can hold maybe 200 people. Where are the other 600 people going? You know, what plans do you have in place if something like that happens? So, you know, fortunately for you, a lot of the people that sit on the special events team are also on the city's emergency management team. And we have some experience with different types of events, and we can help you work through some of those plans. But that's what we're looking for you. I mean, and that's why I say I applaud all of you for being here, because these events, large or small, are very complex. When you're worried about tents and generators and porta potties and where are you going to put this, and you have a problem musician that can't come in till this time, and then I'm coming at you saying, well, yeah, but what if there's a tornado, or what if there's a thunderstorm and that electrical line comes down in Stewart Park? You know, what are you going to do about that? Or, you know, how's your trash going to get disposed of? And, you know, you can't have your tent up for 5 days in the park, and, you know, but your tent company says, well, that's the only time I can deliver it. And, you know, so we need time to work all of those things out. So the earlier you can get in, the better for us. And we have a lot. Right now we are juggling 15 event applications. And that takes us up, a couple events are out to September. But we know we have a lot more coming.
How many did you do last year?
We did over 30 last year. And our events typically start off with the chili cook-off in February. And they go through December, actually, with the chowder cook-off and the ice carving and all of that. So there's a couple of months that I would say we slow down a little bit. We have a lot of running events now. Those seem to be the up-and-coming events that are happening. And those are, actually some of those are the easiest ones, except now we have a brand new challenge, which actually came in almost a year in advance. They want to do a half marathon, a 13-mile run around Ithaca, which will bring a lot of people. We're really excited about this event, but this year we have to deal with construction. Every year we have to deal with construction, but this year we have to deal with Lake Street Bridge construction, and there's going to be Tioga Street, Cayuga Street's going to be under construction. So right now I'm in a panic thinking, oh my goodness, I have tentatively just approved some of these events, and now I have to coordinate construction schedules with them if they're in the streets or whatever. We've had commons construction, we've had all kinds of things. So there's a lot on our end that we're trying to coordinate too, and trying to take some of that burden off of you. But, you know, that's why we want you to get in early, because there's just so many details that you have to work on, and we want to hear about. And when you have the event and we're like, okay, everything's